Good evening and welcome back to the Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones.
He's unconscious.
Now we have
I can't revive you. What?
all kinds of interesting things to do this evening. And I've got good bag flare. I don't know where to go to access tools. Why are there no tools?
Yeah, that's where we need to go.
Oh, the confusions. Promote, 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 promote.
Go. Oh.
No, that's not what we are looking for.
You can't hear me.
Good evening, welcome, 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 welcome. It is good to have you on. We are just starting up and we are absolutely looking for all the right buttons to press to start ourselves up. So I hope you guys are having a great evening. We are starting a new topic for this evening. And if I can find all of the correct buttons to press, we should be able to get things going. I cannot find all the correct buttons to flare it, but nevertheless, that is for another moment. They've updated our live studio, and as a result, where we did get everything to do things, we no longer have that, which makes it ever so interesting to try to figure out how to do things again. But nevertheless, as we start off, we are going to be running through a little housekeeping, such as it is. As you know, we always enjoy differences in opinion, tons and tons of comments, like, share, subscribe, and all the good things, but our one rule is don't be rude. Thank you to Nkosi for liking the lives. I appreciate that greatly. Remember, though, people who are rude, and occasionally we get the odd troll, will get the boot because we don't approve of that. However, for everybody else, thank you so much for joining in, for being a part. And tonight, as I say, we are starting a new topic. And Siabonga012, thank you for liking the live. The topic that we are starting now is mysterious archaeology. So, things that are, in general, quite old from varying countries and cultures. And we will go around to different countries and cultures as the lives progress. But we are starting in South America because what we're actually interested and looking at are the things that nobody seems to be able to explain. Stuff that don't make sense. And why? So we are beginning with a look at three of, I would say, the most ancient of civilizations. The sad thing, I suppose, is that these civilizations no longer exist. They disappeared a very long time ago. Obviously, a fair number of their descendants still live around the area, But the civilization, the culture has passed away in that regard. But they've nevertheless left us all kinds of interesting things behind to talk about, clues and all sorts of other stuff. And that's what we're interested in. Now, the three cultures of which we speak naturally are the Olmecs, the Mayans, and the Aztecs. And to be fair, uh, there's quite a lot we don't know about them. There's certainly a lot I don't know about them. I've done a certain amount of research so we can do this live, and so far, so good. I've certainly encountered a number of interesting odds and sods. I will say to you that it is because of them. Hey, Karina, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you on board. And Gabriella Haman, welcome. It is because of these cultures that we have chocolate. How about that? If it was not for them, we would not have chocolate. Um, so, definitely a major uh, gift to the world. So, something we can all appreciate, and I'm sure many of us do on a regular basis. So, we have much to thank them for, but that is not all that they are known for. Now, they're a very interesting culture in that finding out anything more about them is astoundingly difficult because most of their uh, settlements that remain obviously are somewhere lost in the Amazon jungle, which surprisingly is a hell of a lot bigger than you might think. It's pretty impressive. Huge thanks there to Karina for those kindnesses. I thank you greatly for the gifts. Uh, Half our live goal is complete, and yes, we celebrate that immensely. Now, the problem with uh, the Amazon jungle is that it really is jungle as most of us have never seen. It's really dense. It's largely unexplored. It is still filled with all kinds of wildlife that will eat you in a wink, ranging from the piranhas to the bird spider, which I'm told has an average size. Okay, please note average size, not when they get big, the average size of a dinner plate. So if you like spiders, great, but if you don't, maybe don't visit the Amazon, because right there it does sound pretty intense in the spidery region. Of course, they also have anacondas, which in and of themselves are suitably terrifying. I don't know if any of you are into uh, trashy horror movies. I do like them. And of course, the movie Anaconda is right up there as a fan favorite. Um, but yes, anacondas get big enough to eat people quite often, in case you are wondering. So clearly, getting in to find these places is very, very difficult. And along with that, just knowing where to look is really difficult because the place is huge. Now, there was a very interesting study that was done uh, in there by some fellows who apparently know all about agriculture and such wonderful things. And they discovered that there's a huge portion of the Amazon jungle that is unnatural. And I will tell you why. You see, the natural soil for that area doesn't come from that area. And they couldn't figure it out until what they discovered was somebody, obviously the Aztecs or the Mayans in some way, had literally fertilized or re-layered the top layer of ground in a mix of very fertile soil that was brought in from somewhere else, indicating, of course, that what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Mayans, Aztecs, and Olmecs, so listen close. So they had literally created a giant agricultural set of fields to feed huge amounts of people. So it shows that they were far more advanced than anybody previously believed. Plants versus Zombies, well, actually, I could tell you some stories about what might possibly happen if the jungle really took off, especially if uh, the conspiracy theories are true. But nevertheless, interesting problems in explaining all of it. However, in very modern times, is my name Jonathan Coetzee? No, it isn't. Layla, you don't have to, but if you want to, uh, is all up to you. Nevertheless, um, now you have specialized satellite imagery, which allows you to find lines and structures even within something as dense as a jungle, which helps them actually locate things. And according to one of the more recent stories posted by Tulane University, which, as we know, is quite a serious university in the world, they reckon that the amount that has been uncovered of these ancient settlements is not even half. It's so dense and so hidden that there's just tons and tons and tons of stuff that we haven't even got to yet, including previously unknown large cities, stone pyramids, which is one of our topics for tonight, and a whole lot more. It seems that we know almost nothing compared to what we thought that we knew, which means that there is even more to be discovered. However, amongst all things, and seeing as you mentioned conspiracies, there are a couple of things that we truly cannot properly explain. And people have tried, of course, that show maybe there's more to know. But some of the things are just a little bit out of the standard understanding. So there's a lot archaeologically yet to know. But who were these buggers anyway? So the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Incas, and the Olmecs were distinctive pre-Columbian civilizations with differences in location, political structure, and achievements. The Maya were in Mesoamerica, so Mexico and Central America, known for their advanced writing and astronomy. Also in Mesoamerica were the Aztecs, which had an incredibly powerful and kind of violent empire with the capital in Teotihuacan, focusing on warfare and human sacrifice, which was fairly creepy. They apparently were really big on the whole human sacrifice thing, which is quite disturbing. The Incas were in the Andean regions of South America, modern-day Peru, with incredible engineering feats connecting their empire with extensive road systems. Um, Now, along with that, we also had the Olmecs, which are equally strange. Let me just find my hidden notes, which have run away, and there we go. Who were the Olmecs? The Olmecs were also Mesoamerican, around the well, nowadays is Mexico, of course, around Veracruz and Tabasco. Yes, just like the source. But we're talking, these are people that were all there way, way, way back by thousands of years. They were initially centered on the site around Teotihuacan as well, but moved away to what is now La Venta in about the 10th century BC, which shows how old they were. And they disappeared mysteriously in the 4th century, leaving the region virtually unpopulated until the 19th century, which of course then brings you to ask the obvious question of where the hell did they go and why? And this isn't even answered yet. They appeared to also be quite interested in bloodletting and played a very strange ball game, which we know from carvings basically was a pretty hardcore game. If you won the game with your team, you absolutely were treated like a god. You were given all you ever wanted and more, and celebrated in massive ways. However, if you lost the game, uh, let's just say you only lost it once. So clearly, they were a pretty hardcore bunch, and they've left behind a number of things that we will discuss. We know that their name, the Olmecs, refers to from the Nahuatl language as meaning the rubber people. And rubber was used in a lot of different things, including making the ball for their special game, and in a lot of other things. So even the Aztecs referred to these people as the rubber people. But we know that even the Aztecs only spoke of them about 2,000 years after they disappeared. So, who the heck were they? And why did they vanish? What happened? Nobody really knows. But as we progress with these, the Mayans were a collection of independent city-states, each ruled by their own king, whereas the Aztecs were a centralized empire with an emperor, Tlatoani, and they had several different tribes, but they all had one ruler. Now, the Inca, on the other hand, were a unified empire with a single centralized government, so quite different people. The Mayans were known specifically for their writing, their hieroglyphic system, and their expertise in mathematics and astronomy, way before the rest of the world. Even the Arabs even managed to start thinking about mathematics. So these guys started on with their superior technology way, way, way back, which is quite a fascinating thought. Now, the Aztecs, of course, were known for their building. The city of Teotihuacan is an amazing spot, and I actually knew a guy that was born there. And it's so high in the mountains that if you're not actually from the area, if you go and visit, you have to spend the minimum of 2 weeks simply acclimatizing, as normal mundane walking around is really, really difficult because the air is so thin, it's hard to breathe. Now, of course, for those who are local, they are adapted to it, but the Aztecs are known for their very elaborate pyramid temples, And of course, this gives us our first topic of why pyramids? What's going on with pyramids? Because, of course, these guys are not the only ones to do pyramids. They had a very complicated religious system, which, as we have said, focused on human sacrifices for their war god and Huitzilopochtli. Yeah, pronouncing the names is very difficult. I'm almost certain I've ruined my attempt at all of them because, yeah, as you can imagine, who speaks ancient Aztec? Not me. Now, the Inca were noted as engineers. And here's something which is pretty impressive when you think about how far ago this happened. They built around 40,000 kilometers of roads, tunnels, and bridges to connect their empire. They developed the use of quipu, knotted cords for record keeping, because despite their incredible archaeological finds of their engineering brilliance, they didn't have a writing system. So go figure on that one. Yet more, that's just a little strange. But with all of that, let's go on a bit and talk about some of their other things. So the ancient South Americans built pyramids for a number of reasons. They were especially used by the Mayans and the Aztecs, and they were used as temples by and large. And it was on the top of these where the priests performed their religious ceremonies and all of the nastiness that went along with it. These structures were dedicated to varying deities, housing sacred spaces where people could communicate with the gods and the divine. But here we find our first clue as well, because, like in other countries, the pyramids were very, very carefully positioned to align with celestial events, such as the solstices and equinoxes, and they were crucial for both the agricultural calendars and for their religious observances. So it seems these guys really understood how the stars worked. The structure's height connected the earthly world to the heavens, symbolizing a bridge between the mundane and the divine, or so they say. I strongly suspect that there's a lot of things that archaeologists have said, well, obviously it's this because, but the real truth is they are guesses because there are inconsistencies and things that just we don't know, and we're going to get to those as well. Now, they say the reason for building pyramids is because they're very stable architecturally, making them a feasible method of building very tall structures with the available technology and limited tools of the time. But when you see how big the stones are and how difficult it would be to move these stones around the jungle, and we do know because of geology where a lot of these stones come from. So we know, for example, that the stones at Machu Picchu came from a particular quarry that has been found. The only difficulty is given that the average technology for the guys that built Machu Picchu was rope bridges. How do you get a 2-ton stone from the quarry to the place of the building? It boggles the mind. Clearly, there must have been some methods that we simply don't know about or understand. The idea of this is very much based on a lot of guesswork. Now, of course, with it, we have the stone carvings, and The Aztec and Mayan carvings are quite similar in their use of stone and the focus on religious figures and historical events. But the Mayan carvings are more intricate, and their hieroglyphic inscriptions is more like of a form of writing, whereas the Aztec carvings, like the massive Quetzalcoatl sculpture, were known for their dramatic monuments using different volcanic stones. Now, Quetzalcoatl, of course, is one of the gods, and we are going to come to him for a number of different reasons. Now, both cultures produced brilliantly detailed artwork, though the Mayans flourished centuries before the Aztecs and had an actual written system. We know that the materials tended to a particular kind of rock because it's what the whole area is particularly made of. So that doesn't give us a great deal in that regard. But we do know that there are other things to consider. Talha WP, welcome, welcome. How are you?
You must do the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing, bruh.
I didn't hear any of that. The background noise was way too loud. So drop a comment on what you were saying for us there. Now, as we go along with this, we know that the Maya civilization was at its peak somewhere between 250 and 900 AD, while the Aztecs were big in around the 14th to 16th centuries, which was well after the Mayans. And of course, the Olmecs were at their peak well before even the Mayans. So it's a long history that is not well recorded. Mayan carvings are often characterized by very busy and intricate designs, whereas the Aztecs went for imposing. So now this made the Aztecs very strange, because how did they get their huge stones all over the place? Because it's just not a simple thing to do. Just achieving this would have been virtually impossible. But then, of course, having put all of that effort in, you start asking why? What was the point? Why did they want to make such impressive figures in that regard? What were they trying to get up to? Now, to answer that, clearly it was massively important. And one of the big ones, which you may have heard of if you're into your conspiracies and more, is the one that is known as the Palenque astronaut. This is a Mayan carving from the reign of Pakal the Great, and it was carved on his sarcophagus. And the reason that it's important, given that we're talking somewhere around 300 years AD, okay, so fairly long ago, you've got a very intricate carving of what is clearly a man in some kind of spacecraft. Now, how do we explain this? Why? What would they know about that kind of thing? Surely it can't be that that sort of thing. Also, we know that they had a very, very, very complicated calendar. And the worrying part of their calendar is that it does end suddenly. And according to them, at least, the idea is that clearly the end of the world. The calendar goes so far and stops because there is no more time. When exactly that time is another question. But let's start with the Mayan Palenque astronaut. So there are a number of theories about this, and of course they go both ways, as you can absolutely imagine. But von Däniken, Chariots of the Gods, von Däniken, or Erich von Däniken, wrote that the carving shows a man in a spacecraft operating the controls with his hands and feet. Fire from the rear suggests that this was a ship of some variety, and therefore they must have had some kind of advanced technology that is now gone. The other mainstream idea is that this is actually an image showing a soul falling into the underworld. And the fall symbolizes being buried like a maize seed to be reborn, possibly in God form. Now, we know that maize was very important to the Aztecs, absolutely. The ship then is, in the mainstream view, seen as a tree of life, a crucial element in the Mayan religious beliefs. And this shows the cycle of life. However, the claim that Pakal was an astronaut is an example of how people have looked on it as proof of extraterrestrials visiting Earth in ancient times. Now, very, very quickly, because I don't want you to say that people are crazy to come up with ideas like this, let's have a brief look of this specific picture. Now, bear in mind, these are not my images. I shamelessly stole them. Now, behind me here, you can see part of the carving from one of the pictures with the guy in what appears to be this sort of fancy spaceshipy thing, with his feet on the pedals and his hands operating the controls right there. You can see, dropping that a little, you've got some kind of control system that attaches to what looks like an engine. So absolutely, it does appear not as random by any manner or form, but rather as something which might well be something technological. Gabs, hey, how are you?
Hi,
Are you good?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
How are
So
you?
I'm very good, thank you. So what do you think? Is this a spaceship in a carving?
Yeah.
It certainly looks like it. But then how do we explain that it was carved in a
Certainly it
round...
does. How are you so clever?
Oh, I don't think that would be me. These are things that I've found by research on the net, and it does make it
Let
very
me out.
interesting. Sorry, say that again. Ah, we lost them. Never mind. Hopefully they will drop a comment or something like that. But as we are progressing, so we've got what is very obviously something quite technological, which should never have been able to have been carved at a time when none of these things should have existed. Now, most scholars obviously reject the idea that there were spaceships or aliens, and they say there was a complete lack of evidence, to which we have to say that we don't actually have much evidence of anything one way or another, and just going and saying, oh, we don't like your theory, doesn't really matter. We know that King Pakal the Great ruled Palenque way back when, and his tomb was discovered in the Temple of Inscriptions by Alberto Ruz Luilar in 1952, and of course this led to all sorts of things. The sarcophagus does contain the skeletal remains of Pakal, adorned with one of the very famous jade masks, which obviously jade was of huge importance in those understandings and things, and in their religion. And in that regard, I think jade makes for a very interesting choice as well. And why masks? Almost as if it was a depiction of some kind of helmet, which we are going to come back to with the Olmecs as well, because there's some stuff there that is kind of interesting. Now, Pakal reigned for 68 years, which was very long for any sovereign monarch in history. And at the time, it was the longest in world history for more than a millennium, which seems to imply that he did a heck of a lot. He was responsible for the construction of the extension of some of the most notable surviving inscriptions and the huge amount of architecture. And he should be known for the incredible amount of work that he did, but it seems that this particular carving, in fact, has overtaken everything else. Amongst other things, though, he is also known for another carving known as the Sun Shield, which may also be of very, very important in our examination of the strange architectures. So clearly an amazing fellow, and the jewelry with which he was buried includes some amazingly intricate jewelry, rings, bracelets, necklaces, the mask, of course, all cut from jade in an incredibly fine manner. So clearly these guys had a lot of skill and talent, and a certain degree of technology, at least, that perhaps show they were far more advanced than we even think. So quite the buildings. The palace, which to this day stands in Palenque, is an incredible building with many, many rooms and towers and stairs and all kinds of things, which in its day, nowadays, of course, things have worn off, but in its day it was painted in red and white, and really quite an impressive and beautiful structure. But again, you start to wonder, what were they doing with these stories, with these pictures, and more? And if you look at the full drawing of his sarcophagus, the carved lid, there's all different bits that are just very strange. I mean, literally in the so-called rocket, you've got the engines below that shoot out fire as if it's a rocket. You've got all of the strange bits and pieces with levers and more, and clearly you're looking at somebody that is in some kind of a ship in that regard. So it's not anything random or unexpected in that regard. It's more than what we know, shall we say. More than what we know, shall we say. Or unexpected in that regard. Sorry about that. We had a brief connection. Sorry about that. We had a brief connection problem, but we're back. A number of the other carvings show people in very strange outfits with helmets and varying other things. And there's an absolutely wonderful picture. Let me see if I can pop this one up for you as well. And you can tell me what you think this might be, because really and truly, I'm going with spacesuit. So let's just pop this one up along, and you can tell me if you think this doesn't spark the old interest. So that's a depiction of one of the carvings. Now, I'm not saying it's a spacesuit, but come along. If that isn't a spacesuit, what is? So it seems that our Mayans, they had something going on. So it's a single, the lid of the sarcophagus is made from a single stone, 2.2 meters wide and 3.6 meters long. It weighs 7 tons. Now, how the heck do you manage to move a 7-ton stone with so-called primitive technology? Right there, we've got issues that need answering, and to this day, we cannot. We know that the carvings are said to be the image of Pakal, tilting backwards in what appears to be a selection of cosmic or celestial symbols in a strange kind of ship. This basically shows machinery, gears, piping, and more. And Pakal appears to be some kind of an astronaut. There's a lot of debate as to what this may be. We know that it took an incredible amount of craftsmanship to get all of the details, which are very, very intricate. So we also know that in certain translations of things written, there are references to King Pakal as some kind of a traveler, implying that he was a space traveler or an astronaut. Most archaeologists say no, no, no. It cannot be like that at all. But again, tell me then what it is. You can't say the theory's wrong when you haven't got a proper theory of your own. It still isn't solved, and therefore we still argue. Let's just agree to that. Now, the sheer detail make it pretty impressive. Now, along with that, you have the helmet, which, yes, there is the helmet depiction. Again, it seems to have all the bits like the breathing apparatus and more. How is that possible? Why? Why would they do something like that? And all that experts can say is they held meanings relevant to the Mayan culture and religion, which is a non-answer, let's be fair. Von Däniken points out that this is literally proof not only of extraterrestrial encounters, which will come up again a bit later, but also that we went to them as much as they came to us, that we had the ability to go out into space in some regard, that there is a way to actually travel the galaxy. Now, along with this, you have the incredible interest in astronomy and in how the stars were and where the stars were and all of that. And you start asking yourself, well, then, why are you so worried about celestial navigation unless you're actually going there? Now, the final nail, as it were, in the coffin is that modern spacesuits are made because they're the most practical design that you can use for that kind of thing. They work. And obviously, if you're going into space, you want something absolutely that works. And they are very, very similar to the Aztec spacesuits. Almost as if there's a practical way to make a spacesuit. This is it. And we all sort of hit upon it and carried on from there. So again, I'm not saying that we did, but we did. So you've got that right off. Now, if they were this technological and more, why did the Mayans disappear? Well, there are many more settlements uncovered, and we know that we've barely scratched the surface. So it's not simply that we don't have the answer, it's that we haven't got to it even yet. There's more to know. Now, along with that, we also have the impressive sunstone, which is a carving circular thing that supposedly is the face of the solar deity Tonatiuh, which appears inside the glyph for movement. Some say that the identity of the central face might not be the solar deity, but rather of the earth monster or something else. Hard to argue. We don't know. That's true. And it's Hayron's back again. What are you up to, sir? Are you in fine and fabulous form? You haven't been around for a while, but I'm glad you're back. Hope you're doing good. What do you know about Aztec carvings?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Anything to add? Learning about the wild and wondrous, that is always a good thing. Well, we are trying to continue that here too, and we're on to strange archaeology. So we've just finished talking about the fact that one of the great Mayan carvings of a chappie who was quite an impressive Mayan king, round about, call it the 7th century AD to be careful. So way back when. But it's got a depiction of him in a spaceship. And if you look at my picture behind, that's a reproduction from one of the carvings on his sarcophagus, showing him in an astronaut suit, which immediately means that clearly they knew something we don't. Well, I very much hope I wasn't being mean, but apparently Layla doesn't want to know about the Aztecs. So, all good. She is welcome to not listen, and I think she did leave, which is fine. To each their own. I like weird. Maybe she didn't. That's okay too. So, nevertheless, as we progress with this weirdness, we know that there are 4 previous eras that are represented by 4 other little carvings around this one. So this was the 5th era, to show when they had seized power over the Central Highlands. Each era, blah, 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 my English is wonderful. I did not see that they swore. Thank you for noting it. I did miss it. For those of you who don't know, that Hayrance is one of our moderators and helps out greatly. With a lot of things. So good stuff there. Now, here's the worrying thought about Sundisk. Each era ends with the destruction of the world and almost all of humanity. And then they start from scratch again in the next era. So the first 4 eras happened and were destroyed. And then the 5th era started. Now, according to what archaeologists might think, they seem to imply that the 5th era is going to end soon. Just warning you, in case you're wondering. So the first era were the 4 jaguars, and it ended after 676 years due to the appearance of monsters that devoured humanity, which is a little worrying. Then you had the era of the 4 winds. After 364 years, the world was wiped out by hurricane winds, and the remaining humans were reduced to being monkeys. So, wiped out civilization. The next of the 4 was the 4 rains, which lasted 312 years before being destroyed by a rain of fire. Which sounds like a meteor strike to me. And then, most interesting, and one of the eras which is a common theme in a lot of cultures that have recorded the last great wiping out of humanity on Earth. This one lasted again 676 years, and it ended with a flood. Now, we've got a lot of massive flood myths all around the world, so maybe they were right. And it makes you start wondering what is going to end the 5th era, which we are currently in. Now, the duration of ages is expressed in years, but you must remember that the understanding of time was different for the Aztecs. So 676 years refers to a specific time period that in modern years is actually 52 years, which is the length of the Aztec century. So we're actually talking 13 Aztec centuries for 676 years. Does this matter? Not sure. We know that placed among the eras are 3 additional dates: 1 flint, 1 rain, and 7 monkeys. And this seems to imply that there were specific dates within these eras that really mattered. So why this is, hopefully, will explain in some ways what on earth they were talking about and what it actually altogether means. Now, there's a lot of different interpretations, and it gets very, very complicated trying to figure out what they're talking about. And of course, it's based on a lot of guesswork because we don't have all the answers or even all the translations yet. But ultimately, what it's basically getting at is we may be getting to the end of this era, which means if they are correct, as the Aztecs, then we are going to see the world wiped out in some way, which is a little bit worrying. Something that hopefully we will survive, but the Aztecs, who were somewhat fatalistic, at least in some of their stories, seems to imply tough luck, you're not going to manage it. So, yeah, that worries me a bit right there. Nevertheless, interesting. Now, we know that the Mayans were a busy bunch. They have already found the cities of Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, and Copan, and after the collapse of the civilization, when everybody simply seemed to have fled, they were just left abandoned. So at the same time, other cities that were around at the time in further away areas like Chichen Itza, which is still there, thrived. So why did they move? Archaeologists don't have an answer, but they seem to imply that there was a terrible drought which caused them to need to move. Now, water scarcity was a problem, and not because being in a jungle, a rainforest, that there wasn't a lot of water that was raining. It has to do with the soil, which you might not realize that the limestone soil doesn't retain rainwater, and it flows down into big underground caverns which were not able to be got at. And a serious drought would cause them to have very little water because there was very little water retention, which made it very hard on them. And it was said to be the worst drought in about 7,000 years. So the lower cities in the lowlands thrived because they didn't have this problem and had sea trade. So the upper cities were abandoned for that reason, they say. Now, can we say that's the only reason? No. Where do we stand on it archaeologically? We don't know. However, we do know that while they were busy and living in these places, they were building pyramids, some of the most incredible in the world outside of Egypt, and can even give the pyramids of Giza a good run for their money, for their grandeur. They have been a popular travel destination as well, but one of the things you're not allowed to do is go inside them for varying archaeological reasons. And the question is, what is inside these pyramids? And the answer is more pyramids. So it appears that the Maya pyramids were built in stages. Many of the kings wanted to improve the pyramids, making them larger and grander, and their solution was to build over the previous pyramid, giving it a whole new outside and bigger. And these ceremonial centers were constantly evolving and growing, and each king built another layer and another layer. So, what's inside a pyramid is more pyramids. Now, it took pyramids. Again, what is wrong with my tongue? It took linguists decades to figure out how to read Mayan writing, and the advent of AI, of course, may be a giant help in this regard. And there's a lot of work being done at the moment where they are hoping very strongly to get some kind of understanding from it. We've only actually started to decode the script in the last 50 years. So we're not actually in a place to say a great deal about any of these things. We know that it was originally thought that Mayan writing was simply images to show ideas, logographic. But actually, no, that's been overturned, and it's been realized that actually it was a lot more complicated and was a proper writing system. So it shows that archaeologists do get things wrong and learn more as we go along. Now, unfortunately, with the Spanish colonization, many of the Mayan myths and legends were lost, but there has been some recovery of these things, which helps us find out more about what they believed, what they worshipped, and why. There's a lot of stuff going on. It gets very, very detailed and very interesting. We know that they did, among the Mayans, have paper, which was made from the inner bark of fig leaves. So they wrote stuff down. And it's in fact still made and used today. They made special inks, including special blue pigments that used things like a kind of indigo, which would have been very hard to find. And it's incredibly tough as paint goes, which means it doesn't biodegrade much at all, which is a good thing because we have therefore found stuff. Now, all of these sort of mixes of things show that the Mayans and the Aztecs knew more than we think. Now, one of those things which connects to their spaceshipy type stuff, which may or may not be important, we are now going to talk about. And it actually connects, weirdly enough, to legends in 2 other countries. So, if you've just joined us, like, share, subscribe, do all the wonderful things to promote the live. We need your support, of course, and those hearts go a long way. So please do assist if you can in that regard. But as we move along with it, I'm going to draw your attention to the stories found among the Irish of the Tuatha De Danann and the tales of the fairy. Now, the Irish fairy are not little winged creatures at all, not by any means. They are, in fact, quite large creatures, slightly taller than normal men. And they are known for being tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and in the case of Manannan MacLear, incredibly good travelers who moved all over the place around the world. They say that it is said in their legends. The descriptions of the Tuatha De Danann are quite well documented, as are their stories and what they were like and what they did. If you follow Irish tales, they're a fascinating thing indeed. And I would suggest you go and read such delights as the Tainbo Culane and such. However, Manannán mac Lir, tall, blonde, bearded, blue-eyed, and able to travel in ways that were amazing even to the Tuatha De Danann with his magic ship. Among the Navajo, they speak of the Nunahé, people who, unlike all of the locals, were tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and bearded, that came by strange means from over the sea, that settled for a time and lived in the hidden rocks and mounds in North America. Descriptions of buildings that are not unlike the tales of the Tuatha De Danann. And of course, as we come down to South America, there is a particular Aztec god, and his name is Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is named in Nahuatl as the feathered serpent. He's one of the deities in Aztec culture and literature, and he was related to the wind, to Venus, to sun, to merchants, crafts, knowledge, and learning, as was Manannán mac Lir. And he was the patron god of the Aztec priesthood, the god of wisdom, learning, and intelligence, and one of several important gods, along with several others, such as Tezcatlipoca and other names that have far more consonants in it that I can pronounce, just so as you know. However, Quetzalcoatl wears around his neck the breastplate, spirally voluted winged jewel, the talisman with a conch shell cut in cross-section, just as a sailor would wear, like Manannán mac Lir. That they, of course, took on, and religious rulers also then carried on with these things. But in his man form, Quetzalcoatl, unlike any of the local residents and pretty much all the other gods, was tall, blonde, bearded, and blue-eyed like Manannán mac Lir. Wait a minute. How? Because there are carvings of this bugger, and it seems that Manannán mac Lir got around and was so well known to visit that when Cortez, the Spanish leader, arrived in South America, the Aztecs actually thought he might be Quetzalcoatl. So they clearly had met somebody who was a traveler of some variety that was connected some way to all of these things. The equivalent of, as well, Kukulkan. Now, listen to that name. Listen carefully. Kukulkan. Because in Irish mythology, a chap who was half fairy and was a great hero, the equivalent of Hercules among the Irish, also had a time when he traveled greatly to learn to be a great warrior, and his name was Cuchulainn. And like others, like Mananan Maclear, was tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and bearded. Are we seeing a pattern here? Even his name is pretty much the same. Now, I'm not saying there's any truth to it, but were there people that traveled, that had ships of advanced technology, possibly even spaceships, that allowed them to visit people who then remembered them in some ways as gods? Because Quetzalcoatl, while it means the feathered serpent, allegorically speaking, it also means the wisest of men, which means if somebody came with vastly advanced technology, they would be seen as the wisest. Are we talking about something more? Well, it's a fair question. But we need to look at yet another set of interesting things which we don't actually have answers to, because, of course, how are we going to get these answers except by talking greatly about them? What about the Olmecs? Who were they? What did they do? We do know that they also were really quite big in the carving realm. We know that they used their time, as it were, to do things that really took a huge amount of effort. So it must have had massive meaning, just like our spacesuit behind us. But the Olmecs themselves, who were they? They called themselves the Tamonchan, the mouths of the jaguars, perhaps, but everyone else called them the rubber people because of their use of rubber, and is even till today a trick that the Amazon primitive tribes use, who are obviously the descendants of, when walking through what is incredibly wet ground and full of leeches. They dip their feet in liquid rubber several times and create for themselves a kind of welly boot, which allows them to walk through the wet, swampy ground without actually getting leeches on themselves. Just saying that clearly they had skills and knowledge, some of which remains. So we're looking at Veracruz area. It's swampy lowlands, low hills, ridges, volcanoes, and the Sierra de los Tuxtlas rises sharply in the north along the Gulf of Mexico's Bay of Campeche. The Olmec constructed their permanent city temple complexes like San Lorenzo's Teotihuacan, La Venta, Tres Zapotes, and Laguna de los Cerros. Now, of course, these are names that were given by later Spanish arrivals, not by the Olmecs, but they are the cities that the Olmecs built. Now, the height of their culture flourished from around 2,500 years BC, and they developed and came on into the top of their culture as Olmecs, not pre-Olmec-y things developing into their one thing. Much thanks for the lines there. Thank you so much. Around 1200 BC, which is, regardless of how you look at it, a freakishly long time ago, which matters, of course. And they had quite a bit of advanced agriculture as well. And their civilization flourished because of the ecology and the well-watered alluvial soil, which meant that they could grow a lot of food, which obviously is key to developing any civilization in that regard. Now, as they did, they developed, as all of these things, into a civilization that had an elite class. So they were able to start developing the kind of artifacts that weren't for daily living, but mattered in terms of growth of more artistic type stuff, which is what generally remains behind and can be found. Good for us, archaeologically speaking. We know that they did some amazing stuff with jade, obsidian, magnetite, and these stones tend to come from very distant locations, which seem to imply that they had extensive trading networks as well. So they got around. They were not primitive by any means. And yes, they built pyramids too. So we've got three cultures that were obsessed with pyramids in South America right off. Harv, hey, welcome back. Good to see you. And thank you so much for the likes. Now, again, they say that these pyramids were probably used for religious reasons, but probably it don't give us too much. We think there may be other reasons, do we not? Now, we know that they went extinct as a culture after a certain time, probably around 400 to 350 BC. We don't know why. The population suddenly dropped and they disappeared. And the whole area was almost uninhabited until the 19th century, which is a very, very long time for an area as good as that just not to be used. We know that they were serious farmers, very large groups of farmers, and did a lot of changing of their environment for that reason. They did hunting. They traveled a great deal, and it's wondered whether or not tectonic upheaval may have affected things. But again, we're talking guesses. Now, what artifacts do we have that matter? Well, they made a lot of carved things and different art, many of which were purely for aesthetic reasons, not because of any reason of religion, though there was a lot of that as well. We know that they absolutely had a serious interest in jaguars and people who were half human, half jaguar. So it seems that they had weird jaguars in South America, which implies that weird creatures are in every culture in the world. You just get different varieties. I love that. I personally do believe in my little squishy heart that weird creatures are real, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I have absolutely no proof nor basis for this belief in any manner or form, but in my head, weird creatures absolutely exist. They have to. It's my head canon. So Tell me what you think of that. Am I mad? Probably. But we have amazing legends of weird creatures all over the world. We've got weird jaguars among the Olmecs and the Mayans and the Aztecs. We've got weird foxes in Japan. We have werewolves around Europe. We have weird crocodiles in certain places, including Egypt, though, of course, Egypt has quite a few weird creatures with their various animal gods. We've got, there's one, I misremember what it is now. It's something else. That's in North America. I forget now. And of course, in Africa, we have weird hyenas. We have weird sharks in the Polynesian islands. I mean, come on, guys. We're creatures. Therianthropes. I'm holding out for that. We'll find proof one of these days. Or maybe not. However, we have weird jaguars. And that is particularly good. And thank you so much for all of those likes that are floating on up. It definitely makes a massive difference to the channel. Now, we know that they made a lot of figurines. They seem to like dolls in that regard. Action figures. Yes, they're not dolls, they're action figures, and therefore they're suitable to be collected by adults. And they made really good carvings as well of them. They look just like what they're meant to be. That we're not talking things that are badly made. We're talking well made. You can see exactly what it is, the details of their clothing, what you're supposed to see them doing, everything. They were good. But the one thing that really seems to be weird are the giant heads. What's with the giant heads? Now, mainline archaeologists who do not believe in aliens and weird creatures and all of that will tell you that these giant Olmec heads are wearing helmets that the ball players in their fancy and rather deadly football game used to wear. But what if they were space helmets? Just saying. And why? We know that these helmet-like heads with headdresses have special symbols, different teams, maybe. Who's to say? And they are all individual. No two heads are alike. They all have differences, almost as if they were specific peoples that they were representative of. Harv, you are a star, and I thank you for it. You are a great man. What do you think? What were the Olmec heads, and do you believe in therianthropes, weird creatures? Tell me, tell me. Now, these particular heads were carved from a single block of stone, usually basalt. And basalt's pretty damn hard. It's not the easiest thing to carve by any manner or form. So if these guys were meant to be so primitive and to have so few tools, how the heck did they do it? We don't know in that regard. Now, we do know that they're all over the place in the jungle. They're not like in the cities where you would expect. No, they're randomly placed around the jungle. And we know that these heads are so big and so heavy that it's been estimated by experts in moving things that it would probably require the efforts of more than 1,500 people for 3 to 4 months to shift the damn things. All good, Harv. We'll wait for you and you can give your opinions thereafter. Enjoy your tea. So we know that some of the heads have been variously mutilated and buried and disinterred and reset in new locations. We're not sure why. Some monuments and at least two of the heads were recycled and recarved. We don't know if this was due to the scarcity of the stone or if there were other symbolic reasons. We know that they are flat-faced, thick-lipped, which might be more African in the features, implying that actually Africans had got to South America before everybody else. Others say no, that they were carved this way due to the shallow space allowed on the boulders, and the addition to say that it is an African is that most of the carvings show an epicanthic fold, which is an Asian thing. So what are they actually trying to get at here? Is there an African origin? Is it an Asian origin? Did the Olmecs just look different? What are we saying? Because nobody seems to give an answer here. We know that some of them had special braids. They had dreads. The Olmecs had dreads. I will have. Thank you so much. You're a star. We know that the heads depict a particular style of person, if you will. Thank you there to Trust. That's very kind for the like. Their remnants do still exist in the area. So the original carvings were of a genuine people, which in the modern day, I would then say, well, why don't they just bloody well go and get a bit of DNA and figure it out where these people are supposed to have come from? We do know that they made a lot of jade face masks, and this was a big deal because it was the ruling class, okay? And the Olmecs were masters of carving. So absolutely, there was that. And the Olmec style face masks also have very specific facial features that show this same deep set eyes, wider, flatter nose, and thicker lips, but with Asian style eyes. We don't know. Now, we do know that the Olmec people gave a reason for their appearance. And you're going to like this one. I know I do. Because as I told you, therianthropes for the win. So according to the Olmecs, I love this. I love it when I'm proved right. According to the Olmecs, their religion was tied to a race of were-jaguars that was also partly one of their ancestral groups. And according to them, one were-jaguar quality that's found in some of the art is the sharp cleft in the forehead of many supernatural beings that shows the natural indented head that jaguars have, and which the Olmecs also seemed to have, which implies that in fact they are the ancestors of the were-jaguars. So there are also as well a number of axes that were carved with faces and things that also show the same idea of the weird jaguar, often with an open mouth and quite frowny faces. So right there, we see that their designs, figurines and all, imply that the Olmecs were all therianthropes, that they had amazing and very advanced technologies in a number of ways, that even those Mayan and Aztec cultures that came afterwards may well have drawn from the technologies left behind and taken it further, even possibly being able to develop spaceships, as we've seen in carvings, had connections with what were either the Tuatha De Danann or aliens, or both. Maybe they are the same thing, we don't know. We're going to be digging into this more as we go around, because there's a lot more in other cultures that match this, but we shall get there. Along with more weird creatures, because we like weird creatures. But nevertheless, none of these things can be properly explained. And that's the cool part. Now, amongst all of it is one weird theme that we haven't talked about and can't really explain. Huge thanks for all those likes going there. I'm loving this. It is a wonderful thing indeed. What was with the bloodletting? Just asking, because that's creepy right there. Kids, do not do this at home. It's bad for you. Throwing it out there. Now, we know that there was a lot of ritual bloodletting. And bearing in mind, this does not require an unaliving sacrifice. This is the drawing of blood for ritual reasons. The person doing it very often does it to themselves. We know that there have been natural and ceramic versions of stingray spikes and maguey thorns that have been found on sites that were clearly used for this purpose. Some say that there was human sacrifice involved, but no artifacts have been discovered to say this, and that's purely speculative. But the bloodletting certainly. No Olmec or Olmec influenced artwork shows any victims or anything like was found among, like, say, the Aztecs, where absolutely they did, and they were big into it. This was different. There also has been weird collections of bones found. So at El Manati, disarticulated skulls and femurs and complete skeletons even of newborns have been found among offerings, leading to a speculation that there may have been infant sacrifice in certain places. Some authors show that, or at least try to, that this goes along with pictures not only of humans but of weird jaguars as well. Now, this isn't properly found or explained, it's guessed. We do know that they developed writing, and in fact, they had writing from around 900 BC, which is pretty far back in that regard. They had speech scrolls and glyphs that seemed to actually have been quite a complex alphabet. They found some stuff that showed a set of 62 symbols, 28 of which are unique, carved onto rocks. This is possibly the earliest pre-Columbian writing ever. We don't know why, and it bears no apparent resemblance to any other Mesoamerican writing system that came much later. So, what were they? Why were they? Here's where maybe again AI might give us some answers, because we literally don't know. We know it's there, we know it did stuff, and these guys had the knowledge. They knew a lot. We just don't know why. They also were very careful to figure out the calendar for varying reasons. We know that they played this fancy ball game, and rubber balls have even been found, and some descriptions of how the game was played, which is pretty cool. And later cultures took it over and carried it on. And as I say, you had to be tough to play that game and win. We know that we're not really sure what their ethnicity was at all. It's hard to pin it down. We are not sure what their language was really like either, because these guys vanished so far back that we know more about them from what the Aztecs wrote, which is kind of hard. We know that they were very keen on their religion, and there were full-time priests and shamans of varying variety that showed that these were shamanic in their style, but that they also had transformation abilities. They were were-jaguars. We're creatures of varying varieties. And of course, they also had influence on Quetzalcoatl and more that was taken up later by the Aztecs and Mayans. So clearly these guys were very organized. They had a central government. They had a standing army. They were hierarchical. They were very, very good engineers. They traded all over Mesoamerica. They had amazing roads that they built. They lived well and were good at agriculture, and were able to fertilize huge tracts of land. These are probably the guys that actually fertilized large portions of what is now the Amazon jungle and grew specific plants for medicine, cooking, food. They domesticated the sunflower. They grew avocados and cacao. They used squash, cassava, maize, beans, sweet potato, and more. And it was very diverse. They knew what they were doing, how to do it well. They ate a lot of fruit and vegetables, but also fish, turtle, snake, mollusks, crabs, birds, peccary, opossum, raccoon, rabbit, and small deer. So very, very clearly, they were busy. They had a very solid culture. So they could develop a lot of things in terms of art and technology, and they did. And it seems that amongst other things, they too had secrets we have yet to uncover. What were the helmeted people for? Why? And what did they do? And how come their carvings also seem to imply connections to aliens? What the heck is going on with aliens? Or gods, because some say, no, they're depictions of what they thought were gods. Really? That's interesting. I doubt it. There seem to be very strange things. Now, we do know that these peoples may or may not have come from elsewhere and moved down here. They may originate there and people have gone elsewhere from that. We know that they literally are able to make carvings so lifelike that you cannot be anything other than convinced that that is a person of a particular type, that is a baby, that is a wrestler. I mean, their artwork was fantastic. They made bottles. They obviously knew how to fire clay and all of that. And they had skills. Their heads, though, were giant. These huge stone heads, massively heavy, very specific features, and no particular understanding of what the hell they were made for. You will find them sometimes around cities, but sometimes they're just like out in the jungle. There they are. What are they for? We don't know. Why put them there? We don't know. Some were buried. Why? We don't know. We need answers. We are unlikely to get them unless we find a heck of a lot more stuff to dig up and examine. But like, one of them, they reckon, is 6 tons. 6 tons. You got to be serious to make a 6-ton statue. What did they do it for? We don't know. But the reason I'm telling you all of these things, and the reason why it matters, is other cultures did exactly the same thing. And we have just as few real understanding elsewhere. And of course, it means that you must come back to the next lives when we do those countries and cultures in order to figure out if we can find any connections. I do remind you, though, do not forget, Sunday nights there is no live. I have one night off, so I can go to bed early. But otherwise, I do a live every night at 10 o'clock on this channel, except for Thursday night, which I do one on my other channel on other topics entirely. So otherwise, 10 o'clock South African time, which is GMT +2, I will be here talking about all these weird, strange things, just because. But moving along, remember, like, share, subscribe, and do all of the good stuff so that we can do all of these things. And as we move along, let's say that every head is distinct, naturalistic, individual features, even specific bits like small scarring and so on that somebody might have had in real life. The expressions vary from placid to smiling. We know that they are more realistic than stylized in the way they are made. They also made wooden versions as well, some of which have survived. And it's quite possible from that we can guess that they probably carved many of these heads. But in things that didn't survive, so other materials that weren't as good as the stone. So they were serious. They mattered. They all seem to have this weird helmet, some of which are decorated with specific low-relief carvings to indicate that they came from a specific group or type. They used direct percussion to chip away large and small flakes of stone until you got the rough shape. And then hammerstones apparently were used to fine shape. But that's an incredible amount of work if those were the tools used. So they were very important. Why? We don't know. There are 17 that have been found in the Olmec heartland sculpted from basalt that were mined out. We know that the Olmec didn't need to quarry the raw material for sculpting the heads. There was a lot of stone in the area, so that would have made it slightly easier. Thanks for those likes, that's very kind of you. They were transported, however, over 150 kilometers from the source stone. Now, how? If you've got a 6-ton block of stone, how the hell do you drag it through the forest? Even on a decent surface, that's damned hard. The Olmecs did not use beasts of burden, nor apparently did they use wheels. So how? Because I haven't got an answer yet. No matter how much research I have done, I can't seem to figure out what the story was. Now, I do remember there was an American architect and engineer who worked out that if you wanted to move this kind of stone and build things like, for example, Machu Picchu, it would take the gross national product of America for the full year, the use of all the military special transport helicopters just to shift the stone into place and to get it built. You could do it, but that's what it would take. So billions to achieve this. So it gives you an idea of the scale of the jobs that these people did and how incredible that they managed it. It doesn't make any sense. So you start wondering, what is the story? Why did these people do these things? They're just so impressive and so impossible until quite recently in human evolution to even start doing things like this. They knew way more than we can even begin to imagine. So at the end of the day, we have to say it's a mystery. We don't know why. We don't know how. And yes, there are pyramids. And we are going to have to look into much more about pyramids in other places, in other cultures, and try to figure out why pyramids, because it can't just be convenience of building. We do know, for example, that when the Egyptian pyramids were built, there was no way there was any kind of cultural contact with the Aztecs when they were building their pyramids. No communication could be possible as far as we know. So it's not that. It seems that there must have been other reasons. Why the pyramids? There are many. They must have been absolute hell to try to build, and yet they built them. And so on that note, we are going to round off what we have seen that makes no sense. We know they built pyramids that really and truly, what the heck for? We know they have carvings of spaceships and space suits. How? Why? We know that they have very detailed descriptions of people that absolutely could not have been in that area at all at the time. So, how would they know what to describe these people as when the descriptions absolutely fit to the same descriptions other people had of similar powers or gods or spirit beings that turn up all over the world? What's going on? Are we seriously missing something big about, well, everything in history? Is there stuff we ought to know? Should we understand more than this? How do we get spacesuits like this? There they are, right there. What's going on? We need answers, people, and for these answers, we're going to continue in the next set of lives with even more ancient, unexplained archaeology and architecture. And maybe we'll get some answers. So, what do you think? Where would you like seen next? There are a lot of things to talk about. We do need to discuss not just buildings and pyramids. We need to discuss things like the Nazca Lines. We need to discuss Stonehenge, Göbekli, the Greek pyramids, the undersea cities off the Mediterranean. We need to discuss the Russian pyramids. We need to discuss a lot of things. So if you've got any things you're interested in, let me know. Give us a comment. Make sure, of course, that you like, share, subscribe, and do all of the good things in that regard to keep us going. Send lots of gifts. I love gifts. And it makes the channel happy. And consider joining us on a permanent basis. You can subscribe, and you would be very welcome to subscribe and join our fan club. Why not? But until the next time, I'm going to thank you all for coming. It's absolutely awesome to be able to share this with you and my generalized insanity about the weird and the wonderful, the supernatural and the paranormal. And we will talk about just about everything because we can. And I hope you are as curious as I am, because I think that there's a lot out there that we don't have answers to. And while some people say it's mere fantasy, is it really? Just remember, until we called it science, we called it magic. And that's a fair point. There is so much we don't understand, and so much more. So maybe we do need to know more. We know that many cultures talk about the different realms where different beings live. Does this mean that there are multiple dimensions, different worlds alongside this one, where the jinn, the Tuatha Danaan, or maybe even Valhalla might be located? Who's to say? We know that some of the descriptions and explanations of these places are so incredibly detailed, you start to wonder why so much effort was put into them if these places were mere imagination. It's a point, and one that needs explicating. I think in terms of all of that, and seeing as we're currently on the pyramid kick at the moment, perhaps we will look at one of the other countries where there are pyramids in the next live. And if nobody sends me a message to say where, I'll pick something good, but we'll go around the world and we'll talk about things that are truly weird and bring up what we can. And remember, weird creatures are real and they're out there. And we're going to find them. But until then, I shall bid you all a wonderful, wonderful evening. Have a good night and sleep deep and sleep sweet. But do remember, sleep with one eye open. Keep yourself careful. Maybe keep a holy object near at hand, just in case. Because there are many things out there, my friends, that go bump in the night. And if we're not careful, perhaps, just perhaps, they will go bump for you. Good night to you all, and thank you for a wonderful evening together.